the student shootings, how bad it was and stuff, and one student had made the comment that he felt like any student that went in to do that must be pretty brave because they knew they were going to die. Therefore, they must be pretty brave to be a school shooter. And that alert, it alerted on that. That was the second alert. And that's the only two alerts that we can say that they shared with me, that they've got. They did a sampling of ours and said there was 4 alerts. They won't tell us what those alerts are. They did a sampling of ours and said there were about 6,900 posts that were associated with Clark County schools. They went, I don't know how far back this went, and there was 21 discussions that was taking place at the time, and that there was 4 alerts. There had been 4 alerts out of those 6,900 posts. They wouldn't tell me when those were. They wouldn't share what they were. We'd have to take them. We'd have to pay them the fee to let us know what those are.
So these were alerts from our page, from Clark County
from
Board of
things that we had on there, something that somebody posted
so
that
nothing,
constituted alert.
Nothing that someone privately put out there.
They won't
on their
monitor
page.
that. An alert is an actionable.
$9,200? I'm sorry, go ahead.
And they don't really go into exactly, you know, said beyond the alerts, we estimate we could identify 21 discussions trending in your community. So, I mean, but then again, this is all all on Facebook. So based on that, I'll be glad to continue with some other companies. If you want, there are others out there. The next one we tried, it was supposed to be what came through internet sites and things, is highly rated, made a contact. I think Mr. Nichols made a contact and they were no longer in business. So it must not have been that good. I don't know. But we can continue to search other sites, but based on this searching, I don't know, that's up to you all, but the value of just, and I don't know if it's necessary to go what age groups. Maybe you don't go all the way down to elementary age, maybe you just do middle schools, you know, that would reduce the cost.
Is that a year?
That's per year, that's per year.
Okay, that's
per year.
my question too.
And that's just, yes, for 1 year.
I very much appreciate you researching this, Mr. Christie. I tried to reach out and you got a lot farther at Fayette County than I did. I ran into some blocks on it. I think, I agree, as long as they're not looking at Instagram, then I think that's something that we probably ought to put a pause on, at least that service. I know the question was sent back to them just to confirm that understanding, but
Yeah.
realistically with my kids, that's the site that they're going to be on more than Facebook.
Facebook is the old people's stuff now.
Uh-oh.
It's older folks. It's older folks on there. It's not the kids anymore.
I don't know if I'll go down that path, but I appreciate you looking into it. And I guess from my perspective, again, if they're not on, if we confirm it on Instagram, then maybe I would encourage us to keep your ear to the ground and see what other districts might be doing. Because it's still, the concept is still good, but we've got to figure out the right way to attack it without throwing away this district's valuable resources.
Other comments, questions, concerns anyone has or whatever? Not, we'll just move on to our item number 3. Discussion of pros and cons of contracting with a budget analysis firm to review the details of the budget and identify savings. Mr. Christie.
Did a little research on this. Alicia has actually attended the training from this company. And if you have some questions, I would probably ask you to direct your questions at her. I have not heard the training, and I have not I have not looked at the PowerPoint that she has. She has the PowerPoint from the training that they did. My understanding with this group is their first places they look is going to be in staffing, and I think, and Alicia you can ask her, but I think a lot of the training, he even indicated in the training that special ed is the first place that they look. That's where that the most savings can be generated, because there is no staffing allocation for that. Therefore, you're not limited in how many you can cut back there. So that's a place that they always start looking first for cutbacks. I would be very, very concerned about making cutbacks in our SPED program right now. We're looking at increases and everything instead of looking at a way to try to cut back there. I would be glad to go through the PowerPoint, or I would be glad to set it up for you or any number of you, if you felt the need to come in and sit down with them, we can have these folks do a PowerPoint, even over the web or whatever we need to do so some others can see it. Like I said, I've not seen the whole thing. Alicia has. If you have any questions, you can direct them toward her if you have any questions that I haven't answered.
Remember, questions?
Ms. Ellis, what is your impression of the probability that either this company or someone like it could generate savings in excess of their fee?
I do believe 100% the first place they're gonna look is staffing. Because the meeting that I attended specifically with this one company, the entire conversation was directed at, one, they first look at what is mandated by the state in your regular staffing, which we are way above and beyond. We have 52 teachers with that excess between what we give elementaries and the excess. There's 52 teachers. If you did an average salary on that of about $50,000, that's almost $3 million on the budget alone. That they would just walk in the door and say, well, you're overstaffed just in your regular allocation because you're hiring above and beyond what the state requires. The second most thing they concentrated on was special education, talking about how there is no true staffing allocation. The state mandates for your regular education, regular instruction. They do not mandate an allocation for your special education. So the rest of the presentation was dealt with talking about special education and how, since there is no mandate on that, everybody's all over the board. He says this is across the entire United States, not just Kentucky. Their company works with multiple states. And the whole presentation was based on narrowing down what is acceptable in the district, getting your superintendent, your staff, your board, and your community to buy into that new idea of decreasing your sped. That's what the whole meeting consisted of. So
I can tell you probably the third place that they would find it, that they would suggest here is transportation. We still do that double-tiered transportation where we run preschool, separate routes for preschool, then we pick up preschool through fourth grade in one run, bring those kids in, and we turn around, go back out and make the routes and bring in sixth grade through 12th grade. I will tell you that when we did that, we cut our disciplinary referrals by 75% when we separated those age groups of kids. But that doubles the cost of your transportation. That's an easy picking place for an auditor or somebody to come in and say, there's a place where you can save $2 million right there. Go back to one tier of transportation, pick up preschool through 12th graders on the same bus, and make one trip and be done with it, and cut you'll cut your fuel cost in half, you cut your mileage in half, so you're basically saving 50% on your transportation. I would not, until times were so lean that I would not recommend going back to that to one tier of transportation.
What's the name of the company?
You remember the name of the company, Alicia? I've got it in there on my desk, and I've got the book in there too.
District Management Group.
yeah.
And I've got the book. I have not read the book.
So Mrs. Ellis, if I could sort of restate what I think you said, that based upon the presentation you went to, the ideas that they had were not particularly, what they showed were not particularly innovative, and they didn't have any, really like, wow, that's a really good idea. We ought to get those guys in here to bring their wheelbarrow full of brilliant ideas to bear on our district. You didn't walk away with that impression.
And the folks
It's not a
that
very good synopsis of what you said. I just want to try to,
It sounds like they make some of the recommendations without regard for what's good for kids. It's more financial and not necessarily what's the best thing for the students. I'd like to think we're making decisions what's best for the kids.
Sounds like they're just looking at what is required.
They're looking at a financial
and
piece.
Anything that is over and above what we're doing that's not required, they recommend to cut. It's not a very good.
I could see them getting into preschool, because that's only required half day. We do actually beyond extended days. So I could see that's another area that they could find, they could say, well, they could point out probably pretty quickly $4 to $5 million that you could save if you want to cut those programs, cut those services.
sounds like at this point in time, there's not an overwhelming need to even move forward with them at this point. tell something
Not
else
with
is
this,
shown that
not
they
with,
haven't shown us.
not with this particular group from what I've seen from it, no. Now, yeah, if there are others, I'll be glad to research, we'll research others if there.
Well, again, I appreciate you going to that program, and Mr. Christie, you giving us some thought. I think it's good, we run down different avenues, so what possibilities there might be there, you never know. So we thank you very much.
I do think it's a good idea that we always, people that are in charge of budgets, to continue to monitor, because obviously we just don't want to frivolously spend money, and, I think it is important that around testing time and the end of school years that we do get reports back on discipline issues, probably with special ed if we're overstaffed there, places to where we've seen improvement in instruction and what we feel like the extra teachers or something have done there. You mentioned a little bit about the discipline on school buses. I just know, of course I don't have kids of that age at all, but I think I would feel a lot more comfortable if I had preschool first, second graders riding with preschool first, second graders. And some of y'all can attest to that instead of the entire time with the older kids sometimes. So I just think anytime that we can put a report or something together and say, we're putting extra money here, this is the results of what you're getting there. I think always keep that in mind.
I will tell you too, that in the SPED, in the areas that they're going to see that they're going to say that we go above and beyond, most of those teachers that are added, or those positions that are added in their one-year contracts, and they have to be renewed each year. So if something comes up and things change by the end of the year, then that person is not necessarily coming back the next year. They're on non-continuing contracts. So that's something that we evaluate every year.
Any other questions, discussion items? Anybody? Okay. Move on to item number 4, which is just a general budget discussion. And I think this kind of came up because of some large ticket items that came along. And I guess, of us all understanding a little bit more how the budget is developed and what kind of things maybe you want to see when we get to that budget development type. I don't think that board members need to get involved a great deal with what we're spending money on, rather how we're spending the money. I believe is a little bit better to understand that the budget is a living, breathing document that can be changed at any time. Now, our final budget does not go through until November, is that what? September? September 30th, okay, the last of September. Okay, but we can change, we can redo that budget at any time. Is that, I am correct in doing that? If there's some direction you think we need to put more money into or take more money out of, just from talking to Alicia about budget development, there's pretty much the people that are involved in those programs get together and kind of go over previous budgets and then talk about things they may need or for the future. So questions that you all have, this is just my understanding of talking to Alicia, and I just felt like it may be some way to let us know when big ticket items are coming along that we know about that up front and feel assured that everybody, what they've asked for, if something's been turned down, why it's been turned down, and if they've got something to justify why they need it, I guess is what I'm looking at. But questions from you all?
So just so I understand, we have until the end of September to make any changes.
Yes, so the budget will be presented again on September 2nd.
After the September meeting.
September 24th, we will have another meeting to approve the working budget, and I have to submit it to the state on the 30th.
So we only have a few weeks if we want
But
to
even
make
after
any
that,
changes.
even after
I
that,
mean, it can be
it
changed
can be
at any
amended.
point due to your directors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
but that's my deadlines of when I have to submit stuff to the state is the January. It's a budget cycling per KDE. January, you all must be informed of the draft budget. May 30th, it must be tentative, must be submitted to KDE, and that's what we start our school year with. And September 30th is the working budget and submitted at September 30th to the state. But it can be, budget amendments can be done at any point in the year to your directives, which do occur anytime you all approve funds out of contingency and move the budgets.
Yeah, okay.
If I may, I have documentation that really was being prepared for the 24th meeting, but I have it ready if you want to go ahead and we can kind of discuss. If not, we can wait till, this is stuff that I would suggest be changed to the working budget level. And you see the
Bless
budget
you.
in 24.
I guess, bring it on. I mean,
And I also, the big sheet is kind of a, just a synopsis of the conversation that was had a couple weeks ago in regards to the plant and operations budget. I just kind of broke that down to show you all exactly what that is made up of. Let's start with the top sheet, just because this is the stuff that I would suggest be updated in the working budget. That top one, at the tentative level, we always budget 90% of the Section 6 SBDM money to the schools in the allocation, simply for the fact of we're waiting to see if they meet their enrollment numbers. All of our schools have met their enrollment numbers. We've had to add multiple growth positions due to that. And so if they meet that, we always suggest you fund them 100%, which is the 140 per child, whereas they've only been funded at 126 per child right now. So you see that very last column, the additional 10% is about 65,000 on the budget to add.
my question that I have on this that I've wondered about is, say GRC, they're 90%, and that was based on their projected enrollment. Say their enrollment went up 100. Now, when we go to 100%, are we
It's still
counting that
based
other
on that
100, or still
projection.
going, so it's still on the
It's still on
projection?
the projection
So
number.
there's a good chance that some schools, if they went up a lot, they're
They-
still
they're
not
still
getting
not
funded
Exactly.
on that. Is
Yes,
there a
because
way
we're doing
to?
it based on the actual allocated document you approved.
Okay.
That
Now, is
projection
that pretty
is-
much procedure for everybody, or is it something we have took on?
It's my understanding that's pretty much how every district works, but if the board, knowing that the enrollment numbers have actually passed what the projections were, if they want to allocate the 140 for that extra, that is a board directive that
Okay.
we can add
All
that
right.
money
Thank
as
you.
well. So that's the section 6 that I would suggest that gets added.
Question on section 6
Yes,
here on the
sir.
first page. What do the schools use this money for?
This money is with their council, and they have council meetings monthly that they discuss what they're gonna buy it for. It could be instructional items, it's their copy clicks.
Well, the site-based council has,
Yes.
Yes.
this is their budget,
That's their
This
basically.
is
money.
their budget, and
Full
we have no control of it. All you have control of on section 6 is saying the per child, how much you have, you can do
How much you
anywhere from
give.
$100 minimum, so you can go above 140 if you want, but 140 is what they consider it's 3.5% of the money we get for ADA for our SEEK.
Based on past experience of being a high school principal, I can just tell you
So
with
could probably answer
ours,
more than,
is that I would call department heads in, and you would go like, science department, what are your needs this year? And you'd kind of have several meetings before you would ever submit that budget in, so you would meet with every department on needs. Of course, some part, mostly like science is usually a department that requires a lot more money than others do. So you kind of get with them, same way they do here, getting with, with people over different budgets, but you would get with each one of those departments and talk about what are your needs for the next year and what you can do with that. And then you have several discussions and you decide, what you got to cut out or whatever, and then your site base ultimately makes that decision on where that money goes.
So if a principal needed something for the school, would they go to site-based council first, or would they come here first? Or if they would go to site-based?
This is instructional.
well, it
This
depends
is all
on,
instructional.
yeah, what
For this-
bucket of money they're asking
Yeah.
to use.
I'm learning there's a lot of buckets.
Yeah,
But for
there's a lot of
this,
buckets.
for the money you're talking about here, if you give them this additional 10%, they're gonna make those decisions at the school level.
We cannot tell them how to spend that.
We
That's
can
a
only,
council
through curriculum and things, we can only advise, but it's
Yeah.
just that, we're just
Okay.
advising, and that's it, we can't.
So they make their own decision how they want to spend the money, and then in history, I'm assuming they usually spend all this. Or
Well,
what happens
remember
if they don't spend it?
Remember in May when I came to you with carry forward requests from each
Yeah,
school? That's
yeah.
this
Money
bucket
they
of
didn't
money
spend.
that they did not
Okay.
spend in the previous year.
And the
They were
reasons
asking to carry
they
it
may not,
forward
there may
for
be
specific
saving for
purpose.
something, they may
Yeah.
try to save a little bit of this, and knowing that they're not gonna get enough next year, but if they save a little bit of this year, they can put 2 years' worth together to do something that they need major for the school that they want to do.
And obviously, you can see purchase a new curriculum for GRC, there's no way with this budget that
They could have done that.
Right.
for that just one department, the English department, the amount of
Okay.
money that we spent there. Same way with the elementaries when we approved that curriculum as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So next you should have a seek allocation form in front of you. So the first column, well, column D is actually what is in the tentative budget. Seek-wise, that's what makes up all the numbers. You get down to line 36 is seek that we have currently budgeted, 17,395,171. We already know the parts and pieces that are actually going to change seek. We don't have that new tentative seek from KDE yet, but we know that your assessments, your end of year, your at-risk numbers, the assessment per pupil, your transportation costs, there's all kinds of factors that go into that. So if you look at column E, we already know our total assessment has changed from the estimated 3.1 that we estimated to the still 3.1, but it's gone up 137, 167, 889. So that changes the per pupil assessment. We have received the forecast seek, and all of these documents that are changing these numbers are attached to the back of this. So the first one is what the assessment change was. The forecast seek, we learned what our assessment per pupil was changing from 644,070 to 664,751. We know what our end of the year number for last year was. It was 4,656. We had estimated 4,677. Our at-risk number also went down from 3,077 to 2,975. Transportation, what they're giving us from the state on that has gone down as well. So all of those factors together are going to change the seek number on line 36 to 17,209,881. And it's also going to change our capital accounts, because this is what drives capital money as well, is our per pupil account and our assessments. So I've got those listed in the account numbers out to the side in column H of where that affects. So you see our seek is projected to go down the 185,000. Then you've got your capital outlay and your building accounts are going down. So I'm suggesting that we go ahead and make these changes in the working budget knowing they're coming down the pike, even though we don't have the final calculation from KDE. This is the numbers they will use to make that calculation. Any questions there?
The transportation number,
Mhm.
seems like in years past, sometimes that's been, we've had even more erosion than this.
Yes.
I figured a nice
And
way to.
sometimes at the end of the year, they evaluate what's, I guess the best way to say is what's left over at the
Yeah.
end of the year, and they kind
There
of
was-
divvy that out to the district. So
There
we
was a
did
very
get,
concerted effort on the parts of superintendents to make the point about transportation.
yeah, they keep decreasing.
So I don't think it got cut as much as it has been in years past.
So you feel pretty good about the six?
It is on the,
1.62
it's on the forecasted KDE document.
Okay.
They have already said that is what our district's transportation is going to be. So that is a number straight from KDE already. And that number never, so far in my history of looking at these seek allocations, when they name that transportation number on the forecast, it doesn't change on the tentative and final seeks. It's always that
And that will
number.
be another year of point of argument with the
Yeah.
commissioner and the KDE over the transportation. It's only about 52% funding.
You can look down at the very bottom, unprorated by KDE. If they gave us our full portion of what is we should get for transportation, it would be a little over 2.8 million. If we actually got what is our portion and not discounted. But every district is cut back, so. Then there at the very bottom, line 52, transportation unprorated. That is what they say. If we got 100% of our transportation cost, it would be that 2.8, but we are only getting the 1.6.
But every district, all the
Oh,
districts.
every
yeah.
district's that way, it's not just Clark County, yes, it's every district. So that leads into what is next in your packet is the capital funding, because we know that the capital accounts are gonna go down. We had originally projected that we were gonna get, as you can see, it was gonna be 467, it's gone down to 465, and then, there's gonna be a little bit more in the building fund as well, but we're down there. So I kind of did a synopsis. That first sheet is just how I keep track of the capital accounts. I put what I know it's going to be from the state on those and then what we committed to it. So obviously debt service comes off the top. All of building fund goes to debt service, 3.8 million. And then I have to take another 282,669 out of our capital funds to cover debt service. So that left us with 182,992 and 79 cents. But that has already been committed to the summer projects that we did in 2019. If you remember, back on May 28th, we had a board meeting and we discussed capital project, well, summer maintenance projects, mostly parking lot, sealing and striping and all of paving and all of that stuff. So one of the, I think it's the very last document in that stapled packet. The debt service schedule's there for you to see that. Good news there, the sequestration from the state went down from 6.2, the state, the IRS, 6.2 that we were having to pay, picking up on our federal rebated funds, to now 5.9. So debt service went down a little bit, so that's good. But the capital, that's a summary of the capital projects, the very last page. I tried to lay out what was board approved total cost, what each bucket of money has paid for. And we actually ended up with that capital shortage. We're like about $6,300 short on the funding of that I need out of contingency or another board directed budget to cover what we did this summer. So that's capital review. Any questions? Now on to the big spreadsheet. So this, I just wanted, just from discussion that we had a couple weeks ago, I just kind of wanted to lay out exactly what the plant and operations maintenance function consisted of. So it's a 2-page, that top page is a list of all the budgets. That very top line is what you see on the monthly financial statement. And Mr. Talby is right, over the last 2 years it has gone up $2 million from 2018 to our current budget. Now, breaking that down, there are 3 departments that are part of that plant and operations. One is maintenance, one is the SRO budget, and one is the custodial budget. And this is payroll and purchasing. And our utilities are part of these budgets as well. So that first page breaks all that down per department and the years, shows the differences. I've listed out the staff that's in each of those areas. And then that second page goes on to tell you the differences that is increased each year, what exactly those increases are made up of. And a lot of it was board directed, either in the draft or tentative budget. If you were told about it, you approved those budgets, so that became part of the budget, or it was a separate board item altogether that made a directive to put it into the budget. And I tried to list those dates as well to the side so you would know when that occurred.
So are you saying the maintenance budget, the SRO budget, and the custodial budget all adds up to the 6.3?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yes. I'll be happy to answer any questions there. That's pretty much all I had. I just kind of wanted to go over what is suggested to change in the working budget. If you all have any other suggestions or directives. If you don't want me to change that stuff I just showed you, but just kind of a summary of in the plant operations budget as well.
I'm just a little confused, and I don't have the document that we had last meeting, but I thought there was like a $6 million maintenance budget and a $4 million transportation budget. But
This is not transportation, this is only maintenance.
Okay.
And maintenance is made up of those 3 departments, maintenance,
Okay.
custodial, and
Transportation is totally
SRO.
separate.
Okay.
Transportation
It's
is not part of
on
this.
this. Okay.
Nope.
Gotcha.
I didn't have time yet to break that one
Yeah.
down.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Just want to make sure I
No, this
wasn't.
does not include transportation.
I want to make sure I was thinking correctly. Okay.
And just back to what Mr. Peridot said in his understanding of how the process works, he is correct. Like Mr. Christie and I both, in October, because I'm trying to prepare for January, so October, November is when we really start that. We sit down with every single principal, which again, their amounts are kind of set by the allocation, but we still sit down and generally place that in an area that they see is what their school is going to need. Again, that can change due to their council directives. And then we sit down with every director of every department and we discuss. We do a printout of their budget from the current year we're sitting in and basically say, here's your budget right now that you're operating out of. Is this sufficient for you? Are there things you know coming down the pike that you're gonna need for next year? And we make that discussion, I make notes, and that's what gets changed in the budget. So it's straight, a lot of the times we're like, no, we're good, you know, like everything, it seems to be working fine for me, or hey, no, like I know this is what happened. One instance, we knew, and you can see on the thing, like the couple years, we added the complex and we added staff, and we know we're gonna need more custodial supplies, we know we're gonna need more machinery, and custodial machineries or maintenance machinery, you know, mowers and trailers and trucks, and like those are line items, and maintenance specifically had a line item for vehicles and has for 3 years. It's in their budget. That's one of the detailed line items. So we try to plan for that stuff as best we can. Sometimes money does get moved around because we get into the middle of the year and something else happens and you gotta move it and buy something else. But that is sat down and discussed with Mr. Christie and I and try to plan that and then present it to you all at 3 different levels that we presented.
A question on the item, on the custodial budget. $250,000 insurance from admin
Yes.
for, that's
So-
in custodial?
It's not really custodial, but we have like a district-wide operations budget, and it falls under that custodial area. But due to that House bill reporting that is done now and reporting our admin fees, a lot of meetings I have gone to with other finance officers at other districts, they have been doing this for years, and it's just not been done at Clark County. They don't, all of our insurance, workers' comp, property insurance, student insurance, all of that's been budgeted under the board's budget, which is an admin budget. You all are considered administration. And so all of that workers' comp, all of that stuff has been under your all's budget. So therefore on that House bill report that now goes to legislation, it looks like we are very top heavy in administration, when actually those are really truly operational costs. Those are not administrative costs. We must pay those things to operate our district. And so in re-budgeting some things in the past 2 years, that's part of that change in this school year, as we moved our insurances and workers' comp and all that to an operational budget, which falls under that custodial budget. That's part of the operations side of the plant operations and maintenance budget. So there's a few items like that. We've moved some salaries around as well that were under the administrative side. We've moved them to like maintenance or custodial because that truly wasn't an administrative budget. So it's just kind of like you have to make sure that you pick the correct coding. There's a lot of combo coding in our MUNIS system that gets reported to the state, and it just, you do your best judgment when you're given a directive and you try to pick the right coding, but sometimes it falls into a function that's considered admin and that's really not admin. So we've been trying to recode some stuff to make sure it falls into the operations budget versus the administrative budget. So that is why we've gotten to the, looks like it's gone up about $2 million, but a lot of that is just kind of some coding changing that it really was being purchased in another area. But we've also added a lot of staff in this area with the SROs and the maintenance guys for our athletic complex. So I mean, that adds up when you start adding that staff. It's a good chunk of the increase. Especially when they're classified staff and the retirement rate for classified staff is substantially high at 24.06% retirement. Any other questions? That's pretty much all I've got for you. It's just
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
information. Any questions or comments for Alicia or Mr. Christie?
I do. Paul, last meeting you said there was some changes that needed to be made in transportation, that there was a need. What was the need?
Remember. Well,
When we
when
started
we
that
was
whole-
talking about the vehicles, yeah, they have a vehicular need, but I also have, I will tell you that other than those 2 new ones they got, and I've got a listing here in my paperwork somewhere that I can share with you, they're still, it's not like maintenance is sitting on a fleet of trucks. It's, I mean, we're driving them there that's 21 years old too, you know. It's just that in the maintenance item, there was a line item that was budgeted for that. There wasn't in transportation, and it goes back to what Elise said, when we meet, we have those discussions. There wasn't anything budgeted. Now, the budget can be changed, but you gotta give up something to get something. We can't just, only you all can add more money to the budgets. I can't add any money to it, so, they're driving older vehicles. But when it comes time to check roads, they'll be in, they wouldn't be out in some of those vehicles. That's not the vehicles that would be used to check roads if we need additional help checking roads. And I'll be glad to sit down with them and look at the budget if there's something needed there. And I think maybe even at the last meeting, Mr. Parrott or somebody mentioned, I would not want to take away from one department, you know, just to give another. We just need to build another one up. We need to work on getting the others what they need instead of taking away from somebody. When you look at the list that I've got here, and it's under this somewhere, I'll pass you out the sheets here I'll pass them out to you, that lists the vehicles, but you'll see that even there, we're still short vehicles as far as number of maintenance people we have, and we still have 2 to a vehicle in some of those, which is, for some of them that works. Transportation, a lot of times their biggest piece that they would use a vehicle for would be to, if we take 2 or 3 buses somewhere to be serviced for some reason, getting those drivers back. And I think, in talking to Mr. Stump, even after that, you know, if that happens, when that's scheduled, that has to be a scheduled thing in the future. When that's scheduled, we'll make sure that they're in one of the new vehicles to bring them back.
If there's a bus wreck, is your transportation?
Oh, if there's a bus wreck, they're going in a wrecker. They're going immediately in a wrecker, and then myself, Donald, Mr. Nichols, we'd all be going on that.
Well, just take those 3 out of the equation. I'm talking Danny. Does he have to go?
He has a truck.
I don't know what his
He has a, yeah, he would be there too. He would be there. And he has a truck there at the.
Or if they break down, are they required to go, or?
Oh, yes, they have to go out if they break down. If the bus breaks down to the point that it has to be towed, they would do that. If not, they could even go on a second bus that goes, because if the bus breaks down, we've got kids that we've got to transfer from one bus to another, so somebody has to drive another bus out there. So one of the mechanics is gonna drive another bus out there.
So you don't have to go though, if it's.
I don't
if the
have to,
bus
but if there's a
breaks
wreck, I'm gonna be
down-
there.
right,
If there's a wreck, I'm gonna be
So if
there.
the bus breaks down, it's Nichols and Danny, correct?
Or
And you go with-
Donald, yeah.
For the bus breaking, that you go down for the bus break.
And
That's
it-
what I'm trying,
and it-
you started that conversation last week, and then we got
Okay.
really sidetracked, and you never finished it.
But yeah, they would go out, but like I said, they'd be taking another bus, and when they're going to, the parts are delivered, most parts are delivered to the site here. If they have to go out to pick up the drivers, and, I mean, we've talked about it, we'll put them in a vehicle until we can do something different. But one of the trucks the one that Danny drives is one that he drives out, checking roads.
And I don't know I don't remember what the exact words that you used last week or last meeting was, but is basically, you know, transportation is, below standard, I guess maybe I don't know if that's the right word or not, but, you know, so I would.
Well, I would agree that their
So,
vehicles
I
are
think-
old, but
I think
they're,
we're just looking maybe for a
We-
recommendation at some point.
we need
on-
to budget into their budget next year. We need to budget in a
Okay.
vehicle, is what we need to do. At the beginning of the year, like we did in maintenance this last year. It needs to be done in a budget time.
I just-
Or if we see that we're not spending as much on tires, we're not spending as much on fuel, as we get closer to the end of the year, you find there that if there's money,
Yeah.
you get to the end of the year and you still got 75% of your budget left, you can start to pull something there and move it around and reallocate it for something else inside there.
Yeah,
So
and-
that's the time to start looking at it. I
Okay.
think it's a little bit early at this point to determine there's gonna be a surplus in this area.
And there may be other departments, you know, that, you know.
Vehicles are crazy in the
below,
district
but
right now.
It's just, you know, if there's a department that we have out there that's below standard, let's see what we can do to.
You know, we've hired on.
That would be your maintenance department too. I mean,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
have
yeah,
five
you
trucks
look at-
that have over 200,000 miles on them, or right at 200.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think I just kind of like to see if there's vehicles out there or departments out there, I mean, besides transportation, besides maintenance, besides, you know, besides those two, I mean, if there's other departments out there that have
You're saying you
been,
took my.
that are struggling, I'd like to, you know, see what we could do to maybe eliminate that, especially,
Are we paying out mileage for maintenance? I mean, are they driving their own personal vehicles?
you don't,
No,
you don't need to be
maintenance, that's for the
substandard.
most part, assigned board vehicles.
Well, we need to have vehicles that
Are we
can
paying
rely.
out maintenance for are we paying out mileage for transportation?
For supervision of transportation, if they go out, yes.
So if they're driving their own?
If they're driving their own vehicle, we're paying mileage,
Okay.
yes.
400 a month, I think.
Yeah.
Do what?
About 400 a month.
And,
Here's,
The
you
standard I
pass,
would look at that from is if we've got vehicles that either are too expensive to operate, they're just silly because we have to keep putting money into them,
That's a
or
list
we
of
just simply don't
maintenance
feel like we
vehicles
can
that they
rely
have
on,
right
whether it's 100,000 miles or 300,000 miles.
I think you have
It's when you
40
can't,
maintenance.
when you can't rely on them, that's
I
when
think
they
you have
they
four
go
in
on
the
the radar.
maintenance department that are ready to end up on the side of the road at any time. You know, and one comment I'll make, because I really feel the need to make it, is I feel very strongly about putting the new vehicles in the hands of our workers, not in the hands of our administrators. So I think we need to be very careful about how we appropriate these new vehicles. They need to go to the hands of the workers.
that's the list, that list you're getting there is a list of the maintenance vehicles and their ages and the mileage on those, like you had, like you saw from the transportation.
I don't, it's not my place to tell you who to give what vehicle to. That does not mean anything. I don't know who has them, don't need to know who has them. I think the only thing that we were discussing last time was making it just across the board, trying to figure out what else was needed.
Yeah,
Did you ever ask who was driving them, or?
no.
I don't care about that. I just.
And I didn't even see that the names was on there. I shouldn't have given you this, but the names, I didn't even see the names on there. I just looked up.
That we need to be cautious or whatever. That was never, that's not an issue with anybody. That's all we're trying to figure out is who needs a vehicle.
I think what we need to do is leave it up to me to work with each department to budget, to get it in their budgets or to work their budgets as we progress through the year. And I'll make sure that as we need vehicles and we're checking roads, nobody's gonna go out in a vehicle that's unsafe to check roads, snowy roads in the middle of the night.
And that's fine. I guess where I'm totally confused, where you all have lost me at, is this started out as a conversation about transportation, and we gravitated right back to maintenance, but it started out as a conversation last week over buying 2 brand new trucks. So we completely forgot about transportation again, and we're back to you're handing me a list of what maintenance.
Just so you see what theirs are, that they're not all new vehicles either.
I don't think they are all new
Yeah.
vehicles. I've been in this district long enough to realize, I know about the tow truck and all that. I was here when all that went down. I get that. I'm not saying they have all new vehicles, or that's not my place to judge any of that. All I'm trying to figure out is if we need vehicles in a certain department.
I can tell you, you need them in 2 departments.
Okay.
You need them in
That's what I
transportation and
need to know.
SROs is where you
Because
need
it's
them.
almost like now this is turning into a pit against each other, and I don't like that.
3.
Well, tech.
Gotta have to take
You got a
that.
van, you got a van. So this is what transportation opens up.
You can't trust him on a bicycle.
Yeah, he can't ride a bike, so yeah.
It ain't for me, no, that's not for me.
Yeah,
I'm
just,
with Donald on that, we need them in the hands of the workers. They've been driving their own for years.
I will work with each of the departments though, and I will be coming back to you with a list if we need something immediately, or if it's not something that we can't work into a budget as we prepare a budget. Or as we
I'm
begin to
good with
move,
that. I just don't
as we
like how
move
this
money around, maybe,
conversation's turning.
yeah, maybe in the later part of this year, we can move some around with inside the transportation if they're,
But that's, okay, but you are over transportation too, correct?
That's on my job title, yeah.
Okay, that's.
For the last 6 years.
Right, that's what I thought, so, I'm just totally confused on where we went with this, but okay.
I'm agreeing with you.
And please vouch for this. Did I not have a meeting with both of you? Was it asked for transportation to have vehicles budgeted?
Mm,
Was it asked for maintenance?
Yes.
Okay. I do what I'm asked.
that's
so-
part of the
You're the
discussions.
least
That's
person.
the part of the
I'm just
discussions we
saying,
have in October,
I don't want to
October.
pit transportation against maintenance.
And that's what it
But
seems
they
like.
specifically asked, they got a line item. Transportation did not ask, so I'm not sure why.
But they
that's
had to give up some other
problem.
areas to get the transportation
Right,
piece
okay,
in
so
there.
but if there was a need in transportation too, which you agree with, correct? And you're over
We buy
transportation.
$90,000 buses. I mean,
I know that, just,
okay, it's kind of hard to ask for a vehicle line item.
You don't
The
buy the
major
$90,000
major-
bus, Kista buys it.
Exactly. Exactly.
But again,
The kids will pay the
I think we're far enough down the road in this conversation. I'll deal with this within our budgets. We'll make sure that everybody's got something to drive.
hopefully.
I've got a truck. I don't care to check road. I'll let somebody else check roads in mine if they want to.
No, I'm fine with that.
I think the
Okay.
whole thing that I was trying to get to last meeting was equality across the
Yeah,
board,
yeah.
across the district.
I agree.
Not just these 2 departments, but just equality across the district. I'm a transparent guy, and when things are not transparent, then I question. So, I just believe that there should be, equality. I know things are going to be missed among, during the budget. So the next budget year, then maybe, we need to address it. So it's just, That's all I was trying to get to the last time. Yeah, the big ticket items, you know, I did get some messages from, you know, from parents asking why we needed that. But again, there's a line item in the budget, we approved the budget, so it's just, I think it would have been, nice just to know it was happening, you know, so to speak, so that we could prepare for the call when we get calls. But other than that, that's what I was trying to get to last meeting.
I apologize for putting names on. I didn't even catch the names. I didn't mean to put names out there. Okay. And I apologize for leaving transportation out. We'll work on your
I think I saw that
technology.
21-year-old.
Technology, we'll work on yours too.
It looks like a 21-year-old van. I saw that the other while ago.
And we need to get rid of all those old vans. They're not suitable for maintenance vehicles.
Whoever's got the vehicle with the stop sign in the bottom, that you told me about, that needs to go.
Yeah.
Whatever, whoever's driving it or where it's at.
It doesn't leave the property now. It doesn't leave the property,
We don't own the vehicle.
Other comments? Shall we move on? Okay,
please.
all right. Item number 5, consider approval of additional visitor parking at Strode Station Elementary School. Mr. Christie.
You have in front of there, this was, we got bids. The bid that you have is, I think it's 6 additional spaces. It's in the circle in front of Strode. It would be 2 administrative, and it would be 4 visitor passes that would be kept open for visitors. It's closer to the entrance at Strode, inside the circle, right in front of the building. This bid that you have in front of you was about $3,000 less than the next bid. We had 2 bids on it. This is about $3,000 less for the same, they were bid out exact specs. My recommendation would be to do this. I know it's been brought up, we have looked already, we've already been talking with them at Justice. You got the same type situation at Justice with the circle out front. However, if you look at the parking lot at Strode versus the teacher parking lot at Justice, the parking lot at Justice, that it comes right up to the edge of the doors there, so they don't have to go nearly as far from their parking lot to get inside the building. Strode, as the time changes, you have a lot of teachers walking in before daylight, and they're down kind of over the hill. It's a much further distance. And parents, when they come in during the day, they have to park down in the lot, and then you've got them having to walk a lot further to get inside the building. So that was the thinking, the reasoning behind this. It's $7,000. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
Right, $7,850 for Laymore paving.
It's Laymore paving, and that would be my recommendation, would be to.
Will this include handicap parking in here as well, or do
we could do one handicap in there also.
I think that would be important.
We can
to
do a
get that close to the
handicap,
building
and
as
then
well.
3 visitors, handicap, and maybe 1 or 2 administrative.
Do you have a diagram of where this parking is going to go? Is it just
Look,
satellite?
if you're looking at that, and that looks like home plate right there in the very center, that's the front door. If I'm looking at it right,
Yeah,
that's the
this-
front
this is
door.
the
It's
front
right,
door right here.
it's cutting that top part of the circle off right there in the front.
Okay, so you're not going to use like this
No,
triangle?
no,
area
no,
over
it's
here,
right
just
there. There's
cut
gonna be
something right
diagonal
there?
parking spaces in the front right there.
Okay.
So as you're coming in, you're pulling into them at an angle, and as you back out, you're going around the circle.
And this is Justice, so.
And it's Justice.
just Preview coming attraction, you think at some point
It's
in time
possible.
we'll be talking
If you
about
look how much closer the pavement, everything is to the front of Justice there, the circle's much tighter there at Justice than what it is at Strode. And,
That's my dog. Okay.
and the visitor parking for Strode is much further away from the building than what it is at Justice. But we're looking at that one. We'll get quotes, and we'll come back and talk about that one too. That's not, I might add, that has not been requested by the principal at Justice to consider that.
Will this come out
Yeah,
of contingency?
after tonight, it probably will be.
Will this come out of contingency? Where would this money come
This
from?
would be contingency.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve line item 5.
So we're approving Laymore, since we have 2
Yes.
different ones,
Laymore.
Laymore paving, in the amount of $7,850.
Yes.
We have a motion by Mr. Talby, second by Ms. Ritchie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Item number 6, consider approval of second reading of new policy 08.1132. Mr. Christie.
Recommendation that you consider second reading of the policy. That was the hardship graduation policy.
Now, so is that for a junior that wants to graduate early?
No,
from-
that's an early graduation. This would be
Okay.
in case somebody got into the situation and there would be some reason why they might have to pull out of school, but we could work with them to get them graduated to where they could pull out early. It might be because of illness, it could be because of some sort of a family situation. You know, this is a hardship. Staying the full year would create a hardship on this student that would probably keep them from graduating. Whereas the junior, that's a plan that they file in advance, and they follow that plan. That's an early graduation. That's not what's, that's
So
not
that
what,
doesn't-
that's not what's,
okay.
this is just that hardship, something that's happened in some student's life that's gonna make it very difficult for them to graduate going through the normal course of the year, for the entire year.
Ms. Considine presented this in the first reading.
Yeah.
And nothing's changed on
Okay.
the first, since the first reading.
Other questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Richardson, second by Mr. Heisel, I guess, since you beat you right there. Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's 4-0. Ms. Ritchie is out. Item number 7, and I'll start right there, and then Mr. Christie, you can jump in to consider discussion of additional funding for schools. Several years ago, when I got on the board, I noticed a pretty high contingency that we had, and I've always believed in putting money back into the hands of the movers and shakers whenever we can. And this is meant, again, like it says up there, for discussion only. It can be discussed, it can be thrown out, it can be whatever. I just feel like that at times when we have additional funds, that we should try to help our buildings out and our programs as much as possible. The last time that we did this, and it was something very similar to this that we didn't ask buildings to justify what they were going to do with this. I've kind of put a couple of little things in there that I thought would be good. Now, again, that's only me doing that. If there's other things that other board members have, by all means. And again, this is just to generate some discussion. Doesn't have to be, obviously not going to be done now, and could go into a future agenda somewhere else for further discussion. And you can go down and you can look at the difference amounts, and most of those are just loosely based on the number of students that they have in school, and some, you know, I even mentioned some programs in schools that sometimes have difficulties in raising funds, and, you know, all the way down, and, you know, working off of our new facilities that we have and making sure students in those areas are provided with good uniforms through that. You know, in band, not being familiar with band as well as that. Basically why I put purchasing of instruments in there was just because I just want to make sure that none of these funds can be used for additional staffing, that it should all be spent on students, and that goes all the way from every one of those things that are there. So again, you guys, if you had a chance to look it over, if you have any comments on it, don't take me up on the math. Again, this was something I was just for discussion. So if I've missed the math, Mr. Heisel, or if I've missed in some of my grammar, again, it's just discussion right there, just to generate a few things. So other ideas from other board members.
I think it's a great idea.
The only thing I'd add in there for your consideration, we talked about this, is that instead of, in the past, this money was just given to them in a kind of a lump sum with some direction, I would encourage you to put some other stipulations on it. They need to come back with a proposal of what the money's going to be used for, so that you actually see what the money's going to be used towards.
Do we know what it was used for in the past? Do we have that?
I don't think so.
We'd have to
In
go
the
back.
past, when we put it in there, I think on the high school and the middle school, we did say in there that we wanted so much of it used for athletics, so much of it used for the music and arts departments, is what we did the last time when we put it in there. And I've kind of put some of those things in there. I kind of said that, you know, it's my hope that these additional funds can provide cultural improvements within the building, so things that they would do with their students, increase community involvement. In other words, if they were promoting their open houses or something, they could use it for that, or anything to promote academics that they may have with this. And like I said, I listed a few programs at different schools, and again, those are programs that typically do a lot, seem like they do a lot for our school, but do have a more difficult time of raising money. So I don't want that to be limited to any of those things, as I've said in there, but also, you know, if there are other things there that we've left out, that we can add those in there as well.
I think it's a great idea. Has this been floated to the principals yet to get any?
I have not. Again, it's just, again, at this time, it's just discussion. I know principals, being a former principal, your eyes light up when additional money comes in. We talk, you know, like we talked earlier about holding money back and giving it to them later. And so this is, you know, a long time ago, and Mr. Christie's old enough to realize when we used to have Section 7 monies. And that was monies that was given to schools every year for them to spend at their discretion. And through all the cuts and everything that's come through education, and I don't know if in the last 20 years there's been Section 7 monies, but I know when I first started out being a
I
principal.
mean, it's still in the allocation.
It's still in there, but
Our
very,
budget isn't-
right.
This essentially would be like.
This would be like Section 7 monies. But, you know, it was fairly common when I first got into administration, and now it's very, very uncommon that they get additional funds into their school. And this just gives a way to kind of help out. I think in a way, you know, you've got a couple of organizations in here in band and athletics that parents take on a great deal of those fundraising, and this is kind of a way to maybe ease some of the pain of fundraising for some of them as well. So, you know, again, just some ideas I floated out there. Most of them are pretty much the same as what I did maybe 3 years ago when we brought this proposal there. But I do like the idea of when I talked to Mr. Christie about, let's have a little plan for it, how you're going to do it before you start doing it. And I can't remember last year if we just turned the money. I'm assuming this money stays here at the board office, and then we just allocate it out as they do it. But I think it needs to be something, there needs to be some sort of plan. This is how we're going to do it.
Mr. Peridot, were you sort of thinking in general terms, like $100 per student? Is that how the math?
I kind of, you know, I started out looking at things like $25 a student and $35 a student. And obviously, I think, you know, your needs as you get into middle school with athletics and music and art, you get more expensive coming in there. So I went up a little bit more. I think I started out with about $35 a student in elementary, and then kind of went on up as I went through, and then I kind of rounded some figures off doing that. And I know the last time we went strictly by a number amount per student, and it wasn't based on ADA, it was per student. So if you had 510 students in elementary, you got 510 students funded for you. You didn't go on 480 ADA. So that's kind of the way we did it. And again, these numbers are very arbitrary. I just, you know, I just sitting down doing a few things, but how you can make an impact. I figured at least $15,000 can have an impact in an elementary school. 25,000 at Baker, you know, 50,000 at Campbell, 100,000 at GRC. Of course, I put some stipulations on them as well. And then, you know, like with the athletic uniforms, you know, we do have situations, you know, I'm not looking to buy everybody a uniform this year, but I went through and just did some research on how much those cost. And throughout the next 3-year rotation, that parents wouldn't have to worry about fundraising to get uniforms. Again, with band, I know it's been brought up before on purchasing of instruments, and I just put that down there. I don't, you know, if there's other need that you need, but I don't think it needs to be spent on, you know, even if they're taking a trip on hotel rooms or something like that. I want something that's going to go directly to students that people can see this, you know, what's happening with that. That's my thoughts. If we think $150,000 should go toward a band trip, then, you know, by all means, you guys jump in here and talk about that.
Well, from my perspective, I think it's very useful for us to invest in extracurricular activities, band, arts, sports, other clubs, et cetera, because I think it really is very beneficial for our students. Naturally, I think we're probably also torn about you know, how much do we have in the budget we need to reserve for the future? You know, what's going to be the impact of how this current budget year is going to play out? So I'm certainly open to the idea, because I'd love to get benefit in the students' hands directly, especially for those type of activities. Be curious how last year's numbers shake out once the final audit comes through, to see how we really did, because I know what we were hoping for, the contingency would be, it didn't quite hit that mark. So, but it's, as we've seen in the past, it can be kind of a fluid number.
Right. And I think, you know, and again, this is not, you know, I don't think anybody has to have this right now. I think people are going to be appreciated, but if they do, at least have times, they're going to be, you know, test scores will be coming in what, a month or so maybe, or something like that, and that's something they can use this money to build toward this year, that they could use to help with those things. So many times that in testing, you take your test back in the spring, you don't get your results until the fall, and you've already planned your whole year out. Well, maybe there's a wrench in there somewhere that they need to throw some extra money at or something with that. So it gives them that opportunity to be able to do something like that. So that was my whole point. Again, I just feel like that when you have a healthy contingency like what we have, I would much rather be spending that money and putting it in the hands of people that can make some things happen with it.
So what's the plan to go forward with this?
Well, kind of what I would like to do is just, everybody, you can take this right here, you can sit down, you can look at the budget, you can talk to Alicia, you can say, well, these are things I like, or I think this is too much money here, or this is not enough money here, and just, you know, kind of just come up with your own set of ideals of how you think this should be, and when we're ready to do it, then, you know, we can all just kind of get together and say, I think we need to put something like this on the agenda at this time, and then we can do it. And again, I don't, you know, again, mine is merely for discussion right now, and to throw some ideas out there. You know, talking to Mr. Christie, I know when anybody sees the amount of, you know, $500,000, I mean, you kind of get a lump in your throat there a little bit. But, you know, I came to this board almost 4 years ago, I guess, and saw a contingency, you know, with a little over $11 million at that time, and I thought that was outrageous. I guess because when I left here, we had about $1.8 million in contingency when I left as principal. So I'm like thinking, man, we've got this money. Why aren't we putting this money back into our schools instead of just, you know, we're not in this business to create a savings account. We're not there. It's not what the taxpayers got us there. Like we talked about earlier, like Alicia talked, we're way overstaffed. Well, we're overstaffed because we're trying to help students. Well, the same way here. If we've got money that's sitting in the bank and it's sitting there year after year after year, I don't think it's doing us any good. Let's put it back into the hands of people that can do a few more things with it. And that's kind of what I like to see. That's what I wanted to see a few years ago, and I think we did it. I think it was well received by schools, and I think it will be again.
I think it's a great idea. What I'm curious about is, I'm sure there's clubs and academic teams and other organizations within the middle school and high school that I don't even know about. You know, because they're, you know, little niches. So it'd be interesting to kind of get an idea of what they struggle with too.
Right.
Yeah. So,
You know, I think there are a lot of, you know, as I said on here, you got academic team, journalism, ROTC. Every time I turn around, there's some sort of fundraiser that they're having, trying to do money, and they do a lot of good stuff for us. I mean, they're out there in the public so much more than a lot. And some of your, you know, I know your band people, you know, they're some of the most best organized people getting things together, and the bingo and things like that. But your other things like music and orchestra don't have the same fanfare sometimes as what your band has. So having an opportunity to do those. Our ag departments do great jobs with their greenhouse sales, and you know, they work the football games and they do some of that. But you know, just another way to maybe do it. And that doesn't mean that all this money would need to go to them. Maybe they said, well, academic team needs $3,500. Maybe journalism needs so much more with what some of the things we're doing there, and then the people at GRC can decide, you know, what's the best place for the rest of these funds at, and that, to me, it would just be one of those things that you find out a place for them, and if if at the end of the year, GRC has $25,000 left over, then my thoughts are GRC didn't need $100,000. I mean, this is money is meant to promote kids and to help kids is what I would look for it to do, because it does no good to transfer it from our funds to their funds. Let's spend it on kids. And again, you know, just kind of look through it, make your own comments on it, talk to people, maybe you know people in clubs or something like that, and kind of see if this number is too much, too little, or what other direction it needs to go in. And Mr. Christie the same way, he's seen it, and you know, there's other things that he can share with us in future meetings, and we can do that as well.
Mr. Christie, would you anticipate principals developing a wish list for the
I would think it would come from,
grant
I would like to see it come from within the school, and where the teachers would be involved in that, and the organizers of these clubs and organizations, and I think the school would take in all of that, encompass all those people and say where the needs are, and like I said, maybe it doesn't all go to one group, maybe it's split up, there's different needs, you know. But I think each of those should be school driven, and I think if you put something out that you've got a certain amount for each of the schools that they're going to get, if they come up with a plan, tell them you got 3 days and they'll have a plan. They'll have a plan on how to do this, and it won't take long to do that. So I kind of like along the lines that you're going. It's different. The needs are different at each of the schools.
And again, some of the schools may identify things other than what we
Yeah.
have, what I have here, as well as.
I just suggested the thing of when you do determine an amount that we let them submit something back and you see it. And so you see what it's going for, because we didn't really get to see it exactly what it went back in bits and pieces, and it was all put to good use. But I think that would be something that would make it more meaningful if they had a plan and was able to fund that plan.
When do you anticipate our audit being finished, Alicia?
They just came today,
Hey.
we'll be working this week, they typically, it's very close to November. Just working on multiple schools at one time, so they still go back to the office and do a lot of stuff in that beginning.
And test results will be in
In the next 30 days.
within the next 30 days. So, you know, possibly an October meeting of sitting there, and if we want to put it on a discussion we've got a couple of budget meetings, if we want to put it on as an extra discussion on one of those meetings, we can do that also, just to make sure we're heading in the right direction. So. All right, some more comments there. We'll move on to internal board business. Item number 8, board member representative to serve on local facilities planning committee. Has my name, but I'm going to kind of turn that over to Mr. Christie of saying kind of what is expected of this.
The local planning committee, we have to do a plan every 4 years. Most of you are pretty familiar with that. That's coming up. Our plan is due back to KDE in April of next year. So we need to start the planning process. It's going to take at least 30 days to put the committee together. It's very detailed as how you assemble this committee. There's got to be equal representation of all the schools among principals, teachers, and parents. And there's it's a membership of total of 20. There's one board member. I'm on the committee, but I'm a non-voting member. There's one voting board member, and then the director of operations is a requirement. And then it goes down to just numbers of people from the community and schools are the other, make up the remaining 17 people. You all just need to select one person. That doesn't mean that others can't attend the meetings, but this would be the only voting member that would be seated at the committee. And I'm going to talk later in my updates about the plan itself, but that's what we need right now is someone. Generally, we met last time probably a couple times a month for 3 or 4 months. The outcome of the last facilities planning committee is what we're getting ready to start opening up here next Friday night. That was pretty much the outcome, the big part of the outcome of the last facilities planning committee. We got other things we need to look. You know, we're looking at, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the preschool in a few minutes. We've got that. We've got some other remodels left to do in some of our other buildings. All of that will play in there, and you'll end up prioritizing that. That's how that is. We'll have Mr. Nance come in. he'll speak to you about the financing piece of it, where we are on the budget. But from you guys right now, we just need one member,
Who was the board member the last time?
Dr.
Dr.
Kudak.
Kudak. Well, I guess the first thing I'll ask is who wants to. So that would be the first. I don't want to force anybody into anything that has a passion for wanting to do something like this.
I nominate Ms. Richardson.
All right. We have a nomination here for Ms. Richardson.
If she wants it. She wants it. So you said it was like 2 or 3 nights a month?
That was the last time, but had some pretty pressing,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't anticipate that it would be more than a couple meetings a month over the next over probably November, December, and January.
I did. I went to several of those.
And generally, if we're on a good track, probably around the Christmas time, we'll probably not meet much in the month of December because of the Christmas break and those kinds of things. So we'll probably go into January, February, maybe.
I'll do it.
So you withdrew your nomination.
Sure.
All right, and somebody's going to nominate Ms. Ritchie,
I'll
right?
nominate.
All right, we have a nomination for Ashley Ritchie. Do I have any other nominations? Do I have a motion to close nominations?
Make that motion close.
Motion by Mr. Talby, I'll second it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those that are in favor of Ms. Ritchie being the board member representative serving on local facilities planning committee, say aye. Aye. All right. Tag, you're in.
You're the first elected member.
All right, number 9, consider approval for board member or superintendent to attend KSBA Fall Regional Meeting September 26, 2019, from Mercer County High School in Harrodsburg, Kentucky. You do have some information about that. I'm sure you've got information that's come via email. So we just need a motion to approve that.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Heisel. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Be sure to see Ms. Nance right there. Okay.
Forms are attached. I gave them all copies. of-
Yeah, we do have a copy of that in there, so make sure you see Ms. Nance about registering right there. All right. Item number 10, review school board member code of ethics and public information policy. This was brought up to me by several board members just to kind of review this. I will say from my standpoint, I think it is important that we all support each other as much as possible, and it's obvious that we all sometimes have conflicting opinions of what we feel like or whatever. And although I have no direct information, some information has been shared with me that's postings on social media, different events within the board. And I just want to make sure everybody looks over the things here that we do, make sure that we are supporting everyone when we do this. And there's nothing wrong if you've got your own private page, posting whatever you want to do. I think we have no control, but we should not be posting things as public if you're using school board insignias and things such as that, and things that open forums to criticize other board members. And, I haven't had any kind of ruling on that, and I'm just speaking from what I believe and what I read. So I've left some things here for you guys to look at that we've looked at before. And if you have other comments, feel free to bring them up right now this time.
Well, I feel like if you post something on social media, then that's a public statement. And we have a policy on public statements. where if it's a disruptive matter, it should be public statement is only issued by the superintendent or his designee. It's chapter 10, section 12. I believe that's correct. So, I would hope that we would refrain from making any sort of public statements on social media.
At the spring KSBA session, I attended a class on social media ethics and school leaders, and it is a fine line that perhaps one would have to walk. They encourage us as board members to be active on social media, and then when it gets to the point of trying to make a demarcation as to what might have been perceived as something that was a school board policy and something that was just informational explaining a vote. I think it's certainly a topic worthy of discussion. Won't hide the fact that I do make postings on social media. I made one particular posting within the last month trying to explain my vote on a particular item because I thought there was some additional information that needed to be out there. If making a posting and explaining a vote is something that certainly from a legal standpoint that Mr. Thomas thinks is incorrect, then that's something I'll want to look at. My purpose was to try to give a little bit additional story that wasn't covered in the regular media. And if any of my postings have become problematic for other people, that wasn't my intention, and I would offer my apologies. I was trying to explain what my vote was, what my reasoning was.
And I'll just tell you mine, and it was just shared with me because I'm going on secondhand information with that. But I think when we use a website and we advertise it as a public, in other words, we use the same insignias that we use here at the Board of Education. And the part that I guess that bothered me is when public can comment on that. I think we have to defend each other. And if you open up a forum that allows people to give you compliments which you can accept, but then offers criticism toward other board members that you do not address, then I think that's where, to me, that's where I would think I would draw the line. I don't think I should open up anything that should allow other people to get on here to criticize my fellow members. And I just think that if that happens, that it would be my responsibility to say, we're all on this board, we disagree on different things, this is their opinions, and they should not be allowed to attack other board members while they're on here. Now, if you're on your own personal site, that's fine. I don't see any problems with this. And board attorney, you can step in and just kind of say, because again, I think we're kind of, wavering a little bit. And I understand the need for public and the use of that, but I think we have to be very careful when we allow a forum to start disparaging other members that we have here. And that's, and that was what was kind of shared with me, and that's the only thing I saw. I can't say I saw anything else. Somebody later showed me a picture of a website that did have some of the that I would consider public. If you put on there, if I put on there, Gordon Peridot, District 3, Clark County Board of Education, I would consider that a public site when I did that. And if I had comments on there from somebody that said, Paul Christie's a dog, then I should be able to get on there and say, listen, we're not going to take those kind of comments on here. And, agreeing or disagreeing is one thing, but I think that to me, and I'll refer to the attorney, I haven't spoke to him about it, but I just think there's some things here that I do think bother people, and we are getting close to ethical violations, I believe.
And I think the key is, once again, it's the nature and extent of what the comments, what you entice in the comments. If you want to say, I voted against a school board raise because I didn't think it was in the best interest, that's one thing. But, there was in particular, this particular post that said, I have significant concerns about large increases, Scott. That was one of the things. I don't understand what the large increases were, and then there was in real estate taxes. And I talked to Alicia and I asked what that number was. It's $15 for $100,000. So, if we're going to do that, we just need to be factually accurate. But I think the key becomes when some of the people, I'm going to pull it up here, Scott, I think there was some comments, there was like 58 comments. And it was brought to my attention where some of those comments where people were actually maybe not directly calling people out, but were insinuating something. I think the key is that we don't want anything to be, I think it was disruptive, I think is the policy.
Right. That's what it's believed.
Press releases shall be accurate in keeping with board policies, and they shall not concern controversial or potentially disruptive matters. So I think anything can be potentially disruptive. For instance, thanks for voting against the tax increase. We see who cares about the citizens. That's a pretty disparaging remark about the other 4 members of the board.
That's what someone else posted in response on it.
That's right, but it was in response to your response. Instead of, it's a good thing to say, hey, let's go GRC, or tonight I voted against it because I didn't think it was best for the community. But there was another one. I'm supposing that these are the people that voted for this high taxes are all Democrats and thieves. So they're commenting that members of the school board are thieves, which I think is another disparaging remark about the thing. So I think when we make our comments or post something on the public site, we need to be mindful of what kind of response. And if someone does make a negative comment, that we take it down because we don't want it to be detrimental to, because it is a public site. So those were the things that I found when I started trying to find this stuff. I looked at the 10.12 public statements portion, and then tried to find some correlation to those. And so if it creates the ability for disparaging remarks or disparaging remarks on there, I think that it would be incumbent of us, based upon our own policy, to take those down. So.
Then I'll just add, I find it a little offensive for some of those comments. And I understand you have a point of view, we all have a point of view, but when you put just your point of view on a website or Facebook without contextually putting the other side's point of view on, well, that's all the public's gonna read. There was nothing on, well, if we didn't pass it, what would happen? Or if we adopted a different situation, a different plan, and it went to a recall, what would happen? There was none of that. It was just, it was basically one point of view without any rebuttal. And I just, because it's not a complete picture. It's just one point of view. It's not a complete picture of what could have happened, what would have happened if we didn't make the increase, or if we adopted a higher increase and went to a recall vote, and the recall vote got voted down, or, the tax increase got voted down. What would happen at that point? It was just incomplete, to me, an incomplete picture. And this was not the first time. There was another incident earlier in the year about the gymnasium that caused some disruption.
Well, I
So-
think people see it and they think it is on behalf of the school board, and it's not, it's individual, so that's the confusion too.
Well, I think there's plenty of places to criticize public officials. And mine is that we shouldn't be creating sites where we could attack each other. We shouldn't do that, or should not allow that to happen. I think that's where the ethical part comes in. Again, if you want to have your own page, it just says Gordon Peridot, and anybody can write what they want to, it's my page, okay? When it's kind of advertised as a public type of thing, then I think it shows a lack of support for the other people around you. And it's no secret that we have difference of opinion. There's nothing, and as I told Mr. Christie earlier today, I walked out of here for 3 years sometimes with my tail tucked between my legs because I got outvoted a lot. And so I know how that is. And when people ask me about it, that's the direction the board went in. And I think that's what you have to do publicly with that. And we do, it's tough enough job trying to make sure we do this right without any other types of things being slung around out there, and we don't need to create a forum for that to happen as well. There's plenty of places to drink coffee and talk all you want to about us, really. That's my thoughts on it. So-
And I believe this is a nonpartisan position. I don't vote because I'm a certain party member. I vote for what I think is best for the students, the faculty, administration, and the district. So there's been some comments on party affiliation, so I would stay away from that because, in my opinion, our job has nothing to do with party affiliation.
Well, I didn't moderate the comments. I just let them fly so people can get that off their chest. After the gymnasium posting, I just specifically went in and clarified that this was just my personal page, but I think the logo's still up there, even though it's not a copyrighted logo. I think that's a fair point. I'll remove that. So it takes another step away from that. And in future posts, I'll, if I can't remember, which I'm not a perfect person, especially at 7:15 in the morning when I did that post.
Stop place on school board.
Well, that's what I am. And it's my posting as that.
I thought you just said something different. I was just reading.
No, I said the logo that's on there, I'll remove that. So people who are casually looking at it don't think it's an official page, even though right next to it I have a disclaimer. And I think your all's comments about disallowing any comments to it, but those are fair and reasonable observations. And that wasn't my intention. It was, the next day people said, so you were in favor of even higher taxes? And I said, yes, but it's more complicated. So I wanted to get out there what the fine point difference was I was trying to make when I said we ought to do tangible taxes higher than real estate taxes, because I got calls about that where people were confused about it. That was my intent. I didn't intend for it to come back on you all. I was trying to explain it. Probably did a less than perfect job of it.
Other questions, comments, or whatever? Thank you to everybody for their understanding on that, and I just hope that we can continue to go forward for our other things. Let's by all means make sure that we bring it up again. I think it is important that we all work together for the best of the district, even if it involves something that we don't like or the direction that way. But I think it's important that once we may have a vote, that's the way the board went. So.
Can you let the minutes reflect that I'm not a dog?
Okay, yeah, Mr. Christie's not a dog.
Yeah, as far as I know, Mr. Christie's not a dog.
All right.
He works like a dog sometimes.
Item number 11, discussion and development of district communication plan. This was also brought up by several board members as well after some of the things, the threats that went out nationwide the other day, and I think all of us received a couple of emails. Some people may receive more emails or phone calls or whatever, and I'm not really sure it's within our purview to be able to develop this plan, but I talked to Mr. Christie and said I would give him an opportunity to go into what his decision-making is and what his communication plan is when something like this comes out, so that we know what's going to be happening if something like this comes up again.
On this particular one, I've worked closely with local police, local sheriffs, legal counsel, FBI, Center for School Safety, and the Kentucky SRO Association, all of which was recommending not sending anything out. This was an unsubstantiated, unverifiable comment that was made, that they tracked it back to a comment that was made on a gaming chat room, came from overseas in Europe somewhere. It wasn't something that, in my opinion, rose to the level of putting something out to the parents of 5,700 kids in the district to increase fear and increase tensions. I decided not to do it. In conversation with some other superintendents around the area that weren't going to do it, they later felt pressured into doing it. Some of them even as late as 9 or 10 o'clock at night sent some stuff out on Facebook. I didn't do that. I can tell you that 2 days later, I did have a superintendent's regional meeting, met with all those folks who sent it out. Our attendance was 89, right at 90%. Theirs was 75, 76%. So it had a dramatic cost effect to sending it out too. So that was something else that was discussed, the cost and the panic that it would create. I will assure you that if there's any kind of a threat of any kind made with any kind of seriousness attached to it that's in our yard, what I would call here for us locally or around us right here, there will be something sent out. I will notify you all first of what I'm going to send out. But in this particular case, I didn't feel like, along with all the folks that I'd consulted with, up to the point of the school ending that day and nothing going out that day with the kids going home that day, I didn't have any indication from anybody they felt that it was necessary, and all indications were that it would create more of a panic than it would otherwise.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, to follow up on Mr. Christie, he actually spoke with me. I contacted Mr. Sheriff Perdue.
I had him too, but
And Mr. Christie had already spoken with the SROs to make sure that they were on high alert. The thing is, this was after Mr. Christie contacted me, we started looking into this thing. This was an uncredible report that came from overseas. It was not anywhere in the continental United States. And FBI, Homeland Security, Kentucky State Police all said, look, there's no credibility to this at all. There is nothing to this. And Mr. Christie had contacted, when I talked to the sheriff's office, he said, look, we've already been in contact with Mr. Christie. We're going to put extra patrol in all the schools. Chief Palmer indicated we'll put extra patrol in all the schools. And there was a balancing act that Mr. Christie did, which was, do you breed additional fear into the community by saying there might be this when all of these agencies who have vetted this thing had said that it was not. And so he asked me what was our liability if we did not. And I indicated that given the fact that every agency that investigated this found there was no credibility to it, that it would not impute any liability either to yourself or to the school system under that decision-making capacity is the reason. Although in hindsight, he probably should have let you guys know, hey.
yeah. And I ended up doing that most of it was individually as I did it, but I can do a better job of that, and I will do a better job of, even when I'm not going to, and telling you why I'm not going to respond to something and getting some input there. But I will tell you that in the past, when there's been what I felt to be a credible threat to this district, we've taken action. I've sent to the board members what was going to happen, and I know Ms. Ritchie was on here, and I don't know, if Mr. Peridot, if you were on when we had some threats at the high school and we had the things in place. That's why my SROs, we were in the middle of the night, we were setting up tables, we were setting up checkpoints, we were doing all these things throughout the middle of the night to have things in place for the next day when kids come in. And that's kind of what I felt I was doing when I talked with local city police chief and the sheriff, with working with the sheriff's department, and Mr. Thomas was having those things set up where we were having the extra protection there. Now, I did not do a good job of telling you all until after the fact. I will say that during that exact time too, there were some very extenuating circumstances going on that took some of my time, but that's no excuse. I went home that night, so I could have texted you, but I think I ended up answering most of you on individual texts. But I will do a better job of telling you in the future as a collective group when I'm not going to do something.
And I know too, being, in similar positions there about how much you do, but anymore, there's so much that gets out so quick that others, and then when other districts do it, and I can't say that, that we were better off because we didn't or whatever, because there were still some legitimate worries from people out there. I just think, we have done so much and invested so much money into safety here that it would have been a great opportunity to let parents know everything that we have done. And some of the things, when I answered some of the emails that we had, and I talked about the additional SROs that we had and our camera systems that we had, and just kind of went down the line on everything. And I think that's a good idea of just having some of that written down before you get into that panic mode of what you do, that you have all that stuff in a statement ready to go, because, you get up in the 6 o'clock news and Fayette County has put out this, and then everybody's watching the Lexington news station, and then you're like thinking, well, maybe our people don't even know anything about it, and I mean, you know, it's one of those things you can't really sit and say we were better off doing it or we weren't better off. I mean, you can look and you can see if our attendance was better, maybe it did work that time. And again, I don't know.
That's secondary, that's not the reason why I didn't do it. It wasn't the attendance thing, it's not why I didn't do it.
Live on that maybe, you know, that you can't have too much communication sometime, I guess sometimes. And I'm not, you know, the criticism or whatever, I mean, it's easy to sit here when you're not there to be able to make that decision. But, you know, if you're a parent that gets up and you see that Fayette County has put out something and then you sit and wonder why is Clark County, I think it's been a great opportunity, and we'll still, unfortunately, we'll probably still have opportunities to send out stuff just to, and make sure in that letter we put down what we've went through to, I mean, we're way ahead of most districts. I would say 95% of the districts out there, we're way ahead of on what we do.
That's exactly how I responded.
Well, and I know what he's saying is right. If we'd have sent something out to that effect, being proactive instead of being defensive to it, I can understand that, because the folks that called here, and Arlene gave me the numbers, and I called each of them back, and after talking to them for 3 to 4 minutes, they were saying, well, I understand completely, I feel better, but, you know, and so I get it. I will work on having something ready that we can pull and make it, each scenario is a little bit different, but we'll have some facts that we can pull together and send out, just reminding people that if there is that condition to where we need to do that, but.
Well, should we have somebody as a backup for you that, you know, I know this came.
Well, I'm not using that as an excuse, because that for me was over by 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, so there was still time to do it, as some of these others did. I'm not a Facebook person, so I'm not one to send something out by Facebook, and I will tell you all right now, that will never be the way that I will communicate with the community as far as something that's of that importance to me is on. Now, I might have some of the GRC or some of the schools send out something on my behalf, a copy of a letter that I've sent, but as far as me getting on Facebook, sending something out, that's probably not going to happen. I'll use one call. I've got other means, methods of doing some things, and I'll work on with Arlene, and I will work on coming up with a letter full of facts that we can just start to pick and choose which of those facts we need to put together that best fits that scenario. I can do better at that than what I did, but that was, and again, I want to say it was not for the attendance reason that I made the decision that I did. That had nothing to do with it. It just worked out that we had better attendance.
Right.
That was
People contacted me was, you know, they were just more concerned that we knew about the threat, what we were doing about it. I mean, you were working way behind, you know, you was working hard behind the scenes, and I think if you just kind of let the public know what you did or what we did, I think that's all they wanted. I mean,
and it sometimes it's a little bit frustrating that the public thinks that we're not doing all these
Yeah,
things. That's the
it's
frustrating
hard.
part for me,
That's
that we have to, each and every time, we have to put it all out there, everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
That's a little bit frustrating, but
I can understand.
but I'm a parent too. I understand that.
Good. Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Christie. Consent items, did you want to pull some things out here and talk to any of those, or did we, on consent items, is there anybody that wants to pull out any of those things? I think Mr. Christie has given us some school updates.
I can update your updates a little bit more if you want me to, just quickly, if you want. You got a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
First off, we've gotten so far on the demolition of the Air Coach building, we've already received 3 bids, and we expect another one tomorrow by closing time. The best thing that we did was taking that foundation work out of there. This has generated a lot of interest in it, and it much more quickly than I anticipated. Tomorrow's when the bids close on it, so we'll be looking and bringing back to you what the quotes were for the demolition of the building. Like I said, we've got 3, and we expect at least 1 more by closing time tomorrow of that. We talked about the loop up at there. The badges, that was a concern for you at the last meeting, I think. That's been taken care of. We got the badges in. We've received all those. Those folks who had not gotten them have been coming in, or we've been going out to them, getting the badges to them, so we're caught up on that. And everybody, if there's anybody else out there that needs one or needs their times altered on it, they need to see Jessica here at Central Office, and she'll take care of that, but I think we're caught up on those. Mobile unit, Thursday, we're getting a new mobile unit up at preschool that the Bluegrass Children's Council is providing for us, because our numbers have grown, and we've got another screening to do, and we will fill those 2 classrooms also quickly. That's going to be moved in on Thursday. Hopefully they'll have it set up. They're coming in, they're paying for that. They're paying to get it delivered, they're paying the lease on it, and they're taking care of everybody of that, in addition to adding another teacher and an assistant there to go in the classroom there. We talked about the facility plan. You all are going to have a choice, and I'll have it on your next meeting to talk about, do you want to hire, like we've done in past, have someone from, it's KSPMA, which is the Kentucky School Plant Managers Association. They're the ones over the facility plans now. Have someone from that group come in to facilitate these discussions. I personally feel like that's a good thing because they come in and they're an unbiased set of eyes that can kind of sort through everything and keep the conversations going and not letting anybody dominate the conversations, where some of us, as chairperson of that committee, might have more of a problem doing that. I think it's a good thing. The cost, and it's $4,500. That's what it's been for, this is my third or fourth facility plan since I've been here, and that's about the price has been the entire time. Tim Eads is the man that would be the one that would be sent to us. He has facilitated here in the past. He's been a facilitator in the past. And when we bring that up probably next month, my recommendation will be to do that. I think that's
All staff in place now?
all staff's in place. They were in place by the end of the 5th day.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Christie on any kind of updates, projects going
And
on?
we've got some really good teachers in that. Surprisingly enough, we've got some really solid teachers in those last few days.
Mr. Christie, regarding this Friday, I think there's going to be a lot of interest in people attending the game. I believe you've got the information out there, but probably just to encourage people even more to utilize the shuttle service that you're going to have from Campbell.
That was-
Naturally, with the construction that's still going on that campus, the traffic is going to be even more constrained, and there's going to be a lot of people
We
there.
have
So just
4 of the
encourage
message
people.
boards that's going out. They were being programmed today with the messages. We went in there that was highlighting the things that you're talking about, and they're going out to 4 spots in the community in strategic locations that people are going to pass them on their way to the school so they can make that last second decision, even still to pull in and be shuttled. And we've got 2 buses that'll be running full time. We've got a 3rd on standby. So if we need 3 buses, we could do that. I would encourage a lot of people to do that. And because it's going to get you a lot closer to the stadium. The bus will be able to pull right up to the road, end of the road there, where you're much closer than where you would have to park out there.
And in your defense, it's going to be a fantastic facility, but there's still going to be some growing pains. So if people walk into it on Friday and say, college, yeah, I wish.
It's not all it can be yet, but
They should reduce their expectation less than perfect, because it'll
Yeah,
just
there's
have
still
growing
some
pains
things,
to
yeah,
get
there's
going.
still some things going on. The retaining wall is the last piece, and I might add, it's going to be beautiful. It looks really good out there, and they're starting on the 2nd level of it today. They were filling in behind the lower level of the 2nd one side's already done. Their intent is for that to be done by Friday. That they're going to have to book it to do it. But it's looking good. That's the only piece, but that piece will not affect anything because that can be, nobody has any need to be up into that area anyway. So everything's falling, it's coming together. I'm telling you, it's been very challenging.
It's going to be a good day.
It's going to be a good day, and I think we're going to have, the weather looks like it's going to cooperate.
Be a great night for football.
I think you're going to see the game, there's going to be a lot of people standing around the edge because there's not going to be enough seats.
Let's hope that's a problem.
Yards by a touchdown.
It was neat, just before I came back in here tonight, the team was shooting some hype videos and stuff, and Lucas was a little frustrated because he was wanting to practice, but they were still doing the hype videos. They were having a ball. And those videos would be posted at various times throughout the game of each of the players doing some stuff. So it's pretty neat stuff.
I saw the advertising. Yeah, the advertising already going up there and everything.
Yeah, we got the average, yeah, it's all going. We're learning.
Did we do that or did?
We did that.
We did that, so we, the
That's
Channel
our
18?
tech department. Our tech
All right.
department is coming through with some, and they're going to be there in full force on Friday night, so.
How
we're putting-
complicated
We're
is
putting
that
Mr.
system?
Napier's number up on the big screen if there's any
getting
problems or
less.
complaints.
Is it? I mean,
It's
that's
complicated to start with, I think, but we've been up there and just running dry runs through and
Yeah.
making sure that things go the way they're supposed to.
Clock keepers were out there practicing today
Kinda cool.
and keeping the clock, everything, so I think we're going to be as ready as we can be for Friday night.
Today we were able to tie our PA system into our video board, which was huge.
Yes.
And watch the video of the last few seconds of the 91 championship game, and even the construction workers were piling in to watch it. I mean, it still gives you cold chills to
So
watch the
it showed
video.
up pretty good on
Yeah,
the
it shows up
Okay.
good, the sound's good, and I mean, people were coming from the construction site into the
Yeah.
edge of the stadium where they could see it.
Good. Other questions, comments on consent items? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 12 and 13.
I'll make the motion to approve items 12 and 13.
Motion by Mr. Talby,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Richardson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 14, closed session, adjourn to closed session for KRS 61810, subsection L, subsection F, for discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of individual employee, member, or student. I need a motion for that. Motion by Ms. Ritchie,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Talby. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Let's take a little 5-minute
8:24.
break.
okay.
8:24 is what I got. We'll take a little 5-minute break, come back and do this. Oh.